shoulders, necklace.
Are you ready?
Welcome to Living Strong, the flip side of adversity, with your host, Dr. Virdra Jackson. On our program, we explore the flip side of every story. And when you open yourself up to both sides, you'll realize that there are life lessons, powerful tools, and so much more. Now, here is Dr. Virdra Jackson.
Hello, and welcome to Living Strong, the flip side of adversity. I am Dr. Virdra Jackson, the CEO and creative behind Living Strong Consulting. Now, we have consistently been able to walk through not only the victories, but also the challenges in individuals' lives. And our conversation tonight will be both. And I'm excited to have Dr. Irving Fryar with us this evening. Now, we joked off mic about his bio is a good 2 pages long. So I won't be able to do it full justice, but I do want to be able to share just a little bit about who Dr. Fryar is. He was the 1984 number 1 overall draft pick to the New England Patriots. He had an impressive 17-year career playing the sport that he loved with the Patriots, then Dolphins, Eagles, and Redskins. During his outstanding career as a professional football player, Dr. Fryar was a 3-time MVP with the Patriots, a 2-time MVP with the Dolphins, and a 2-time MVP with the Eagles. He retired from the NFL in 2001. During this time in the NFL, he caught 851 passes for 12,785 yards and 84 touchdowns. Dr. Fryar became the first player to record a touchdown reception in 17 consecutive seasons. Along with many other awards, Dr. Fryar was voted True Value Man of the Year. He has also been presented with the prestigious Bart Starr Award as the NFL player who best exemplified outstanding character and leadership in the home, on the field, and in the community. He finished his NFL career as the 5th best wide receiver in NFL history, and he is currently senior pastor and founder of the New Jerusalem in Mount Holly, New Jersey. Under Dr. Fryar's leadership, the New Jerusalem has quickly become recognized as a place of refuge, solace, and restoration for those in need of spiritual guidance, healing, and peace. Recently, Dr. Fryar established the Redemption Community Development Corporation, which is a nonprofit organization seeking to enhance communities through real estate development. Now, you now understand why I am so excited to be able to have a conversation, an authentic conversation, about the life and the challenges that Dr. Irving Fryar has experienced, has learned from, and now absolutely is impacting and helping others through. Dr. Fryar, welcome to the Flip Side of Adversity radio show.
Dr. Jackson, thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
He did not want me. He did not want me to read all that.
No, I didn't, but it was okay. You did a great job of reading it. But it's good to be here. Hello, all the listeners, all the watchers. Let's talk. Let's have this conversation, man. I'm anxious. We scheduled this appearance months ago. Yeah, so it's finally here. We're on hopefully the latter end of COVID, but my goodness.
Only can hope.
Yeah.
Only can hope.
It's in our hands though. If we
Yes.
do the right thing and act like we have some sense and follow
Be
protocol,
responsible.
yeah, be responsible,
Yeah.
this thing will end. But we're not doing that right now.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
But you know what? As I did my homework around your story, your experiences, you have been able to use your character, your wit, your insight to navigate challenging things. So I'm excited for what insight strategies you're able to share with those who are listening. So let's jump into my first question.
Okay.
What was life like living as the number one draft pick and then a 17-year veteran in football? So what was that life like?
Well, just like you probably can imagine, it was living in a glass house. Fortunately for me, during that time, 1984 until 2000, social media wasn't as relevant as it is now. So when things happened, or when things were spread across the country, or news went from one side of the country to the other, it didn't travel as fast, and it wasn't on as many platforms. But it was all that it was cracked up to be. Being chosen the number one person in the country out of all of the other college players, I was the first one chosen in the draft. There was a lot of pomp and circumstance that went along with it. There was a lot of responsibility that came along with it. There was a lot of pressure that came along with it. And coming from a dysfunctional background, doctor, like many of us do. I mean, NFL players, people who are in sports, we're just a microcosm of the world. So a lot of us come from dysfunctional backgrounds, and we bring that dysfunction into an environment like that. When you're held to a high level of accountability, you have these responsibilities that maybe you've never been made aware of before, never had the opportunity to actually live in that realm. And you're bound to make mistakes. And I did. I made mistakes when I was younger. I did some crazy things when I was younger, not having a solid platform, not having a mentor to guide you, so to speak. And then you have options. You're given a lot of money. That gives you options. That's like throwing gas on a fire. And that's how it was for me. And
can
early in
only
my career,
imagine.
between drugs and alcohol and dysfunction, there were some mistakes that were made. Thank God I didn't end up dead somewhere. Thank God I didn't end up ruining my career. But somewhere along the line, early in my career, I was led to the Lord. And at that point, around 27 years old, I believe it was, I was able to at least get around some people that gave me solid advice, that gave me spiritual advice, that really were concerned about me and cared about the choices I made, the decisions I made, and the direction I was going in. So it was what people think it is. It was the glamour, it was, people looking at you and admiring you, and you can get into restaurants and not have to pay the bill. You can get front row seats at concerts, all of that stuff. It was all cracked up to be. But the pressure that comes along with it, particularly if you're not groomed for that. Now, they do a better job of doing that I know in the NFL now, they do a better job of doing that for guys who come out of college and are entering to the NFL. They do a good job of grooming them, preparing them, not just to go in and to play football, but preparing them for all the different variables that they're going to have to deal with in being an NFL player.
Wow. I could only imagine when I heard you say the statement of like living in a glass bowl and just having people peer in, judge, as well as criticize, as well as glorify all of the things that they're watching from the outside. So how did you actually navigate emotionally on the inside, saying that you came from a tough background? We all have stuff in
Right.
our backgrounds that can show up in moments. So how did you navigate the emotions of being watched, of being judged, of being even glorified?
Well, I didn't deal with it very well early on. When I was drafted, I was 21 years old. So I had a man's body, but I had the mentality of a teenager still. I wasn't thinking right. I wasn't making good choices. I wasn't making good decisions. And then, like I said, having options and then being immature like that, it really can lead you down the wrong path. So I didn't handle the criticism. I didn't handle the glass house very well early on. It wasn't until I met the Lord. It wasn't until I met the Lord. And understand this, Doc. When I was 17 years old, my grandmother wasn't a prophetess, but she did prophesy and said, you're going to be a preacher. And from the time, the Bible says you train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart. It doesn't mean they won't run. They just won't get away. And
love that.
when I left home and went to college, I started running. I mean, there were times, and some of the people, if they're watching, who used to hang out with me back then, I had a couple of relatives. I would be in the middle of just doing dirt, getting high, running the streets, and I would stop. And this one, I won't tell you his name. I'm gonna keep the names away to protect the innocent. Yeah, but this one guy was with me several times. I would stop in the middle of us, just the middle of our high party, and I would say, "Man, God doesn't want me doing this. I'm not supposed to be doing this. Just messing up our high."
Wow.
But yeah, God's hand was on me the whole time. There's a saying that God takes care of babies and fools. And I believe that that's absolutely 100% true, because I wasn't a baby, but I was a fool. And if it had not been for him watching out for me and covering me and keeping me during those crazy times when I was younger, I just wouldn't be here today. It's just plain and simple as that. So I didn't handle the pressure. I didn't handle the moment, so to speak, as well as I could have. And I can't make any excuses for it. You heard me say earlier, I come from a dysfunctional background. I did not have what some would call a mentor. I did not have someone that I could actually model myself after, who had been successful and knew how to deal with money and knew how to deal with people. But I did model myself after someone. Juwanza Kunjufu says that a 12-year-old boy, when he gets to be about 12 or 13, he will choose a man that he thinks is modeling manhood, and he will emulate that man, whatever that man is doing. If it's a drug dealer, if it's a high-profile guy, if it's a businessman, he'll choose someone at that age, and then he'll model himself and believe that that's what manhood is all about. So I didn't see anybody modeling the kind of manhood that I needed to live out, so I couldn't be it. I couldn't see it, so I couldn't be it. And it wasn't until I got saved and got around preachers and got around Christian folk and got around saved folk, got around folk who were modeling, or at least trying to model, what God calls manhood, that I actually started getting some of the answers and being pointed in the right direction and started living out in the way I should have. And that's when I started handling life better. And that's actually when my career started taking off.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was able to accomplish actually double in terms of statistics. I doubled the second half of my career what I did in the first half of my career. And that's not supposed to happen, because I did all of that in my 30s.
I was getting ready to say, you were older than.
Stop using that word.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But football is a young man's sport. Sports are for young people. And when football particularly, when we hit 30 years old, we're really considered old. So yeah, I did all of my good work from 30 to 37, 38 years old.
And I want people to, there are two things that really struck me as I listened to you. One, even though you did not have the model at that critical age, and I often tell parents, we also have a power parent conversation that we do on social media. And in those conversations, we have often shared with parents, especially of boys, that 12-year-old age is a critical, pivotal age for 12-year-olds. And so I completely echo and understand what you're sharing, that they look for that model and they will model what they think is manhood.
Right.
But what I just heard you share is, even if you didn't have that model, there is the opportunity to shape and reshape your character later in life if you encounter those who actually emulate a healing process, the goodness of God, that you absolutely can encounter a shift and a change in who you are, even if that's not how you got started. Powerful shift.
Yes, yes.
And then the second thing is once you made that shift, it changed not only the inside but the outside as well, which is powerful.
What's on the inside will show up on the outside. And that's why Jesus told Nicodemus, Nick, you must be born again. We have a predisposition when we're born in sin, shaping in iniquity. We have our genes from our parents that are passed on to us. We have a propensity to sin, to do wrong. But then when we're born again, now we have a holy disposition and we can change. Like you said, we change, and our actions, because we're changed on the inside, now we have that Holy Spirit that gives us the ability to live a holy life like our Father. So we do have that natural negative gene that our parents passes on to us, that sinful gene, but then we have the holy. And there's a fight that goes on. There's a battle that goes on. There's a struggle that goes on. And the Native American says there's two dogs inside of me, an evil dog and a good dog. And they're battling to try to see who's going to control me. And someone asked the Native American, well, which dog is winning? The Native American said, the one I feed the most.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'm just like, wow, that by itself, the one you feed the most.
Yes.
I want that to just sit with those who are listening as we get ready to take our next break. As we get ready for this break, I want you to be able to tap into all of the resources that Living Strong Consulting provides. What are you feeding the most right now? I'm sure you want, even in this shift and change of experiences that we are having, even whether COVID has ended or not, the opportunity to feed what is healthy and well and healing for you. There are opportunities to find resources to do just that. We are on a journey of building a growth plan, and so you'll be able to find out how to log into our upcoming growth webinar the first Tuesday of September, September 7th. So log into our website, www.livingstrongllc.com, for an opportunity to get registered. Our session this month is the law of the trade-offs. You must give up in order to grow up. There are things in your life that you need to give up in order for you to get to the next level. Won't you join us September 7th for the opportunity to do that self-search and identify what your next level can be? We'll be right back. All right, we are clear. We are clear.
Ooh, you just played on that. You played on that. You took that thing and ran with it. What did you feed the most? I like that, Doc. I like that, Doc. Go ahead with your bad self.
I tried.
Yeah. You took
But
that.
you know
I'm like,
what?
really? Okay, go ahead.
So we have a slight problem, Dr. Fryer.
Okay, I'm listening.
We only did question one.
I told you.
We
What
only
did I tell
did
you?
question one.
What did I tell you?
I have Facebook family. I have 10 questions. I
I
have
told
10
you.
questions.
I told you we weren't going to get through all of
We-
those questions.
We only covered one. But you really painted the picture for us, and I appreciate your honesty. And I love that last statement. Which one are you feeding the most? So inside our Facebook community, I want you to drop some questions. What are some questions you have for Dr. Fryer around navigating through changes in life, creating a bounce forward? Where we are strong believers in resilience is not a bounce back, because there's stuff in our past that we don't want to bounce back to. We actually want to bounce forward. So ask those questions, put them into the comment section, and I might be able to ask them on the air. And Dr. Fryer is here to be able to share and be honest with us. So I love Courtney. Thank you for logging in. Yes, I did do a shout out for Power Parent Convos, Courtney. I appreciate you.
Don't forget to shout
she
out.
she co-facilitates that conversation with parents
Oh,
for me.
wonderful, wonderful.
And I'm hoping some of our young people are watching. We have a couple of young people who really are in to football right now. So I'm looking forward to us getting to some of those later questions on life lessons and
Yes.
how to navigate and think this through.
Young people, please, please,
Yes.
please honor your mother and your father.
We got about 15 seconds. Here
yeah,
we go.
honor your mother and your father.
This is Living Strong, the flip side of adversity with Dr. Virdra Jackson. To reach the live show today, call into 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. You may also send an email to info@livingstrongllc.com. Now, back to Living Strong, the flip side of adversity.
Welcome back. Well, if you are still chewing on that nugget that Dr. Fryer just gave us at the end of our first segment, where he said, there are two. There are two, the Native American term of two dogs in there fighting back and forth inside of all of us, honestly. You might call it self-talk. Which one are you feeding the most? That's the one that's going to win. I have my next question for you, Dr. Fryer, is how did the trajectory of your life change so drastically after retirement?
Well, one, after retirement, when I retired, I was actually in media. I took a job with CNN SI and CNN Sports Illustrated, and I was going down. It was a great job. I was going down to Atlanta every weekend and doing a live show on Sunday mornings, being a color football analyst. It was so nice. And then AOL came in and bought out CNN SI and canceled the show. So then I started doing some work locally as a sports reporter with ABC, Channel 6 here in Philadelphia. Then while I was minding my own business and doing my own thing, and I had my own agenda, and I really didn't want to stay in New Jersey, then the Lord called me to pastor. And I started pastoring in 2003. And I've been doing that ever since. But about 5 or 6 years ago, I messed around and got involved with a guy that I should not have trusted. Is what I need to say. He's a fraternity brother, a guy I was familiar with. It was during that big housing boom, and we were buying houses and selling houses, buying houses and changing them or refurbishing them and then selling them. And he ended up doing some stuff that was illegal. And because he and I had done some business together, there was money and transactions between he and I. I guess he was trying to keep himself from spending a long time in prison, but he put my name in with what he was doing. And I was not able to get out of it. Long story short, went to court. They do a good job of painting a picture in court, trying to make you guilty. I mean, the prosecutor, the state did a phenomenal job. And it was a lie, but they painted a picture that really seemed like I did it. And I ended up going to prison. And my life changed. Life changed after that. I was pastoring. Before that, while the whole ordeal was going on, I was, trying to keep the church involved or informed about what was happening. Told them way ahead of time. At the same time, when I got indicted, my wife of 28 years filed for divorce. So I was going through this whole thing in court and going through a divorce at the same time. And I ended up in prison. I stayed in prison The judge gave me a 5-year sentence. When she sentenced me, it was funny. It was not. It's funny now. It wasn't funny then. But when the judge sentenced me, she looked at me. She said, "Mr. Fry, I would have found you innocent, based on the information and all." And it was really whack. And I tell my story a little bit at a time on the Fryer Place. So if you want to hear my story, and I don't tell it in a way where I'm running around saying I'm innocent, I'm innocent, I'm innocent. That's not how I roll. What I'm doing is I'm giving the facts when I tell the story. I give the facts and then let the people come to their own conclusion. But it was really a traumatic, it was a depressing experience that I went through, particularly being in prison. Never been in prison. I was in a state prison for 8 months, and it really changed my life.
Wow.
Let me tell you about how God is really with us. The Lord is really with us. If we're looking for it, sometimes it's hard to see it when we're in the middle of the storm because so much is happening and people are talking and the storm is raging and things are out of control. Maybe we've never dealt with something like that before. So it's really hard sometimes to see God or hear God in the middle of the storm. But when I look back on that experience, God was with me the whole time. It was almost like a Joseph experience. I'm not Joseph, but I had favor in prison. When I was in prison, the first day I was there, I was in the county, and there was a guy that came to my door. I was in a cell by myself in an area where they brought everybody in who came in, who got arrested that particular day. So there was a common areas place where there were bunks, and they had one bathroom, and then there were private cells right off of that common area place. There was a guy, I was in one of the cells, and the guy came to my door and just started talking. How long you got? What they sentence you to? Have you been in before? Not asking me specific things, but general questions. And when after I answered the questions, he said, "This is what's going to happen. You're going to get out of here. You're going to go to Kraft. They're going to do this. That's going to happen. Tell them you want to go to the farm, Jones Farm. When you tell them to want to go to Jones Farm, this is what's going to happen when you get to Jones Farm. This is going to happen when you get out of prison." He said, "This is what's going to happen." Now, why that's significant is because that's exactly what happened to me.
That's exactly what happened.
Over the 8 months. And everyone else that I met, that I guess I could say I befriended while I was in prison, they were all trying to tell me, okay, this is going to happen. That's going to happen. You got to do this. You got to do that. This is how long it's going to be. This is how long that's going to be. And none of them were right. But this guy, I was only in jail for a couple of hours. He stood at my door, and it was really calming because it helped me know, or helped me at least grasp mentally what was going on, because I was like in shock. I didn't believe I was in prison. I never believed I was going to prison. And now I'm here and I'm eating prison food and I'm sleeping on this bed, this metal bed, and this toilet is nasty.
Right.
And it was just, last night I was sleeping in my own bed.
Right.
But it was just a whole turnaround. So here comes this guy telling me this is what's going to happen. And what he said was going to happen happened exactly the way he said it was going to happen. I believe that was God working through him. Didn't take away all the anxiousness. It didn't take away all of the feelings that I had, but it helped me to deal with what I was feeling and what I was going through. When I got to Kraft, let me say this real quick. When I got to Kraft, I was placed on a tier. A tier is where they have several cells. So there were 16 cells on the right side of the tier, and on the left side of the tier were 2 TVs, a phone, and tables, so that when we were let out of the cells, we could come to the tables and, play cards or just, communicate with one another and fellowship or whatever that we were doing out there. So my cell was all the way at the end of the tier. So they opened the big door and I walked down, and all the other guys are in their cells, 2 to a cell. I had my own cell to myself. I walked all the way past everybody else, all the way to my cell down at the end. My cell door was still open. I took the little bit of the couple pair of pants they gave me and the underwear and the stuff that they gave me coming into prison. I put it up on this bunk. Then guys started coming in my cell. Now I'm thinking to myself, dang, I just got here. I got to fight already. That's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to fight already. I just got here. So I put my stuff down. I turn around and look at these cats, and they're coming in and they're bringing me food. They're bringing me socks. They're bringing me underwear, new packs of underwear, still in the package.
Favor.
They're bringing me undershirts because when you get to prison, they give you one pair of pants, one shirt, one pair of Bobo sneakers, a couple pair of socks, a couple pair of T-shirts, and a couple pair of underwear. And if you have to spend any significant amount of time in prison, that's not going to get it. You're not going to make it with just those few things. I asked one of the guys who were coming in, why are you guys doing this? He said, this is what we do because we know this is a stressful situation for you. And we know that these are the things that you need. And we don't want you to be any more stressed than it already is. So this is what we do here. We all come and bring who's new. We bring them something that they need. And then he said, because for whatever reason, we've all been found guilty.
Wow.
That's and I wonder, I'm like, that's how the church is supposed to be.
Yeah.
All have
We've
sinned
all
and
been
come short of
found
the glory of
guilty.
God. We're all guilty. We're all under sin.
But will we
But
come
yes.
ready to give?
When
and
people
not
come to the
judge?
church, we run them out the church.
Wow.
Why she have that on? Why she could go into the office? Why he have to do that? Why he look like can't come no better than that? No, we're supposed to, just like when the church was born in Acts chapter 2, when the church was born, people went and they sold their possessions and they brought the money to give to those who were in need. That's how the church is supposed to operate. And that was just God showing me that he was with me. He was just showing me that he was with me. So I had an experience that was bitter sweet, I guess you could say it was. It was something that I didn't fall down myself. I kind of was pushed down. I don't go around saying I'm innocent, I'm innocent, I'm innocent. Nothing happens by chance or by coincidence. But I tell you what, I got a chance to experience God in a way that I never would have and never had experienced God had I not gone to prison. It also gave me an opportunity, Doc, you won't believe this, but I've been treated since I've been out of prison. It was 5 years, June 6th of this year. 5 years I've been out. Since I've been out of prison, I've been treated better by white folk than I have by black Christians.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I continue to think about two things that really hit me as you were just talking. One, going back to the first segment where you talked about you had come into the NFL with your baggage from your past.
Right.
And didn't have an image, a strong image of manhood for you to model. But in the middle of that, someone entered into your life to begin to reshape and provide a direction for you in that situation. And in it, the same elements of that I heard when you hit what some would call the bottom, and you're in those moments when you're feeling lost. So the first story, you were at the top,
Right.
and he still provided for you. You were at the bottom, and in the same way,
Yes.
using individuals that were around you to show you, I still see you. Wow.
God loves us no matter what. And
Whether you're on the top or the
whether you're on
bottom.
Yep, and everything in between. And God will allow us sometimes to go through struggles to build our strength. It's not for any particular reason, so to speak, but so that we would trust him more. That's what God wants from us anyway, that we are totally dependent on him. And when I came out of prison, because of the divorce, I didn't have anything. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a car. I didn't have any clothes. I didn't have a house. I didn't have anything. So I was totally dependent on God. But that was a great place for me to be in because I had never been like that before. I'd never been in that place before. So I had to really totally trust God. I mean, there have been times in the last 5 years when I've said to God, God, listen, I need some money. And right out of the blue, I get a call or something will come in the mail or somebody will put some money in my hand. That's just how it's been. That's how it's been. God has continued to open doors. He's continued to make a way. He's continued. Now understand this too. We all are where we are because of our own choices and our own decisions. So I'm not pointing the finger at anybody else. I'm not blaming anybody else, because ultimately when you peel back all of the layers on my situation, ultimately it's my fault, because I trusted a guy rather than seeking God about him.
Wow.
I trusted him as my frat brother. I trusted him because there were other people who said he was trustworthy and he knew what he was doing in this area that they had dealt with before. And come to find out, he messed them over too. Just it didn't get to this extent. But so instead of seeking God about him, I trusted him off man's word. And that's my fault. That's my fault. So ultimately, I need to take ownership, because I'm the one who trusted him. I'm the one that gave him access to me and gave him access to my mother. So ultimately, it's my fault. I had to apologize to my mother for that, because I'm like, Mom, this wouldn't have happened had I not given him access to us.
Wow.
So really, it's my fault.
So I'm curious, and this has been an amazing. I think about the two parts of the first segment and the second segment of how you explained the fishbowl moment and the fame,
Right.
and then it was still a fishbowl moment, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And as you talked about how people have even judged or treated you, good or bad, it's still a fishbowl moment. As we get ready to take another break shortly, I think it's an opportunity for us, when we come back from this break, to begin to unpack, what have you learned? You shared in your explanation of your experience that it changed you, and that you actually met God in an entirely new way. And I know he does nothing by accident, and he will allow anything that he allows, he will continue to use later. So I know you are using every bit of your experiences moving forward. So as we get ready to come back from this next break, I want us to jump into, what are the remarkable things that you have begun to see, experience, and do since that time?
Okay.
But we'll take a short break, and we'll be back in a few moments. As you get ready for this break, I want you to think about, are you growing? Are you growing in this season? And do you actually have a growth plan? You see, sometimes we talk about growing, but it often is that we hope it automatically happens. And that's not actually how growth works. Growth requires intentionality and strategy. So will you lean into the opportunity to learn how to grow by joining our growth crew? Every first Tuesday of the month, we embark on a growth experience. This September 7th at 7 p.m., join our crew. Register on our website, www.livingstrongllc.com. I hope to be able to grow with you. And guess what? It's free. It's just an opportunity for us to create an experience of growth with you. So when we come back, we're going to jump into the last part of our conversation with Dr. Irving Fryar. We'll be right back.
You're clear.
Awesome.
It's going too fast, Doc.
It is going too fast. And I don't know why Alexa, in the middle of this, Alexa wants to have a whole dialogue.
Was that Alexa talking back there?
Word? I didn't even hear a trigger word.
I'm like,
what is going on back there? I thought that was Keith back there talking.
No. It's sometimes it'll hear something that sounds like Alexa.
And
Wow.
all of a sudden, Alexa.
See, that's why I keep Alexa on my phone. I don't have it on that little doohickey thing on the desk, so she can't talk back to me.
Here she go. Here she go. She's gonna have to be
Yeah,
turned off.
she can't talk to me unless I open her up on my phone. That's it.
So Esther says God wants to us to depend on Him. Absolutely, Esther.
100%.
Yes. We've got several people. Oh, yeah. So Erica, I hope your sons are watching. Both of her sons play football. To be able to glean and hear and to learn from. Any questions? I tell you, they're listening so intensely.
Is that what it
They
is?
haven't even asked a question. We
Yeah,
got
don't be scared.
wow.
Don't be scared.
We got wow. We can't wait. We have people watching. So drop your question in so that if there's anything you are curious about, now is the opportunity to ask. I tell you, I just marvel at how God has continued to be faithful in the word that was spoken to you in the beginning,
Yeah.
and continue to provide, regardless of the situation or circumstance, continue to provide provision, protection, insight. All right, we're getting ready to come back.
Okay. I was gonna say it wasn't until recently I almost lost myself in all of that. You know,
Wow.
I almost started treating myself the way people were treating me. It was weird. It was. I almost got consumed about it, consumed from it or by it. And actually, this whole thing with podcast and all these electronics and all it actually helped to bring me back to who I am and to realize who I am. Yeah, it was.
Wow.
It was. And that's why I'm doing it full speed, like I am, because it's really been a blessing.
This is Living Strong, the flip side of adversity with Dr. Virdra Jackson. To reach the live show today, call into 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. You may also send an email to info@livingstrongllc.com. Now, back to Living Strong, the flip side of adversity.
Well, this conversation is going by so fast. I cannot believe. And if you've been listening, I've actually only asked my first two questions. So this is the problem. This is a problem. But we'll have to have you back for part two. That's all we could do. That's all we could do.
I would love to come back. I would love to
So
come back.
real quick, we did have a question that posted, how did you cope in the difficult places? How did you cope in the difficult places?
It's simple, and it's because it was already there before I found myself in that place. It was my faith. It was my faith. That's the only thing that kept me from losing my mind. My faith in God. That it wasn't. Did I get mad at God? Yes. Did I question God? Yes. Not question who He is, because He is God. He's the supreme. He's sovereign. He can do whatever He wants to do whenever He gets ready with whomever He pleases, and we can't ask Him any question. Doesn't have to answer to any of us. So I wasn't questioning who God is, but I was asking Him some questions. God, you told me to go to trial. You told me to do this. You told me to do that. What in HE double hockey sticks is going on? And so but my faith never wavered. And you mentioned it just a little bit earlier before the break. Hitting rock bottom. And for me, it was rock bottom. It was rock bottom. I didn't have anything and felt like I didn't have anybody, except when you hit rock bottom, good God Almighty, Jesus is the rock at the bottom.
Yes.
Stand on the rock.
Yes.
And that's all I could do was stand on my faith. And as I stood on my faith in God, God began to not necessarily deliver me, but God began to restore me and replenish me and revive me, and revitalize the things that were going on in my life. But was it tough? Has it been tough? Yes. But am I tougher? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I think we have a propensity in this country to build people up and then chop them down. We build up heroes. We build up people with popularity and with fame and all this adulation, and then as soon as we get a chance, we chop them down. And that's kind of what happened to me. But I discovered, particularly in the church, most of the people that came and that left when
Yes.
this adversity came, because it was like, it's similar to Jesus. I'm not Jesus, but it's similar to Jesus. You know, when Jesus started getting all that trouble, and they were marching him from judgment hall to judgment hall and accusing him and all that. He had all those 12 disciples. They were following him. They were with him. They were on his side. And then when all that trouble started coming, they turned their backs and they left. And Jesus was left with one parent and one friend, Peter. And Peter was shaky at best because Peter denied him when they started looking
Denied
at
him.
Peter. Yeah, he
Yes.
denied him 3 times. So that's
said
all you're
no.
going to get when you find yourself up against the wall. You're going to get one parent supporting you and one friend, and that one friend's going to be shaky at best. And I found out that when I was going through what I was going through, and people were leaving the church, and people were throwing salt as they were leaving the church, and people were talking about me and dogging me, and my wife divorced me and all of that, most of those people, they weren't followers of Christ. They were just fans of Fryar. They were my fans. They came to the church because they were fans. And you know, when stuff goes bad, fans are fair
flaky.
weather. Yeah, they're fair weather. They leave. And the
Yes.
true followers of Christ stayed with the church. They stayed in the church. They were there when I got back. Those that came supposedly are supposed to come because God tells them this is where you need to be. So God is the one who should be telling them this time for you to go. That's not why people left. They left because they couldn't handle what other people were saying. They couldn't handle what was going on with their pastor. They didn't want to have to answer questions about what was happening with the pastor in the church. So I discovered that people that came and God shook the trees, or God shook us up as a church, and we're still going. There are many churches that have gone through far less than we've gone through. When I came out of prison, we still kicking it, still paying the bills. Nothing got behind. We did get behind in our mortgage one time. I let the people know, bang, they caught the mortgage up. We've been caught up ever since. There's been no problem. So we've been through far more than many churches have been through, and we're still banging. We're still doing it. And if our church, the New Jerusalem, if God didn't want it to be, it would not be so.
It
It would not be so. It would not have survived.
So you know what? I want to hear about what are some of the remarkable things that are happening either with you personally and the Fryar Place or with the New Jerusalem. What's
Well,
going on?
With the New Jerusalem, it's a miracle to me. It's a miracle that we're still up and running. We've been able to make adjustments because when COVID-19 hit and we all got kicked out of the church, those churches who did not have a presence virtually needed to figure out what they were going to do. And right before COVID hit, we had started doing things virtually with my phone and with my sister's phone. But then when I saw the studio you're in with a friend of mine in that studio preaching, I decided,
Yes.
listen, we need to pick up our game, and we got everything together that we needed to make things look professionally and sound professionally in the church. So the church is doing well. Our people, it's a challenge that we have as pastors because people aren't really flocking back to the church. They're watching us online, but they're not really. Our church has been open since February, but they're not coming back and attending in person. So that's a challenge that we have as pastors to try to figure out how exactly we balance that and what exactly to do. I believe that we're going to be more virtual than we are personal as the future continues to move forward. I started a CDC during the pandemic, a community development corporation. You mentioned it, Redemption
Yes.
Community Development Corporation. We have a project in Millville. We're building a modular home factory. And we're not just building it to make money. We're building a modular home factory. And along with the modular home factory, we're building a residential building where people who are coming out of prison can transition into that building. We teach them skills in the modular home factory, whether it's an electrician, whether it's a carpenter, whether it's a plumber. We teach them those skills while they're staying there. They also make money while they're staying there. They also get life skills presented to them while they're staying there. They have a support system that we provide for them because people who are coming out of prison, like myself, we do hard time while we're in. but then we do soft time for the rest of our lives. My prison sentence, the felony that's stamped on my back, is still causing me problems today. 5 years later, it will still I'll still be dealing with issues from it, probably. And I'm not trying to speak this into existence, but for years to come, I'll still be dealing with that felony. And not to have, I don't even understand how some people can come out of prison and make it, not having a support system, not having adequate housing, not having transportation, not having a job. People won't hire you, not having any money. Not having those things causes you to have to do something desperate.
Right.
And that's how the recidivism rate is so high, and people wind up back in prison. There were a couple of people who left prison while I was in prison and came back while I was still in prison. I'm like, what are you doing back here? I'm never coming back here again.
That shift.
So yeah, we're the CDC. We're doing something. I'm trying to do something to make a difference in the lives of those who are in the system. I'm in the system now. And, if I can say this real quick, thank God for the women in my life. While I was in prison, I met my wife while I was in prison. It started out being someone who was taking care of my affairs while I was in prison. Her name is Serena. She's the director of finances at the church. So while I was in prison, when I went to prison, I turned over all my personal stuff to her. Take care of my bills, take care of emails, go check on my apartment every now and then, take care of everything for me. So she would, watch this now, visiting days were Saturday and Sunday. So Serena would drive and get my mother and my sister is the one who took care of the church. She's an elder in the church. She would get my mother and sister and bring them to see me on Saturday in the prison, and then take them back home. And then she would come back on Sunday before church, and she and I would visit and talk about what needed to be done business-wise, and then she'd go to church. She did that. I was in prison for 8 months. She did that for 8 months. Didn't miss a weekend.
Yeah.
Didn't miss a weekend. Even when I tried to keep her away and tell her not to come. And these were during the months of October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. So there was a lot of winter months in that time. And she did that. Now, over time, those conversations changed. And I got out of prison on June 6, 2016, and I married her September 8th, 2016.
Beautiful.
So that's my wife. But it reminds me of Moses. If it had not been for the women in Moses' life, Moses never would have made it. His mother hid him, protected him when he was a kid. She put him in that basket. Then his sisters stayed at a distance to watch, to make sure he didn't go too far, to make sure that he didn't drift too far, to make sure that he was going to make it through what he was in without anything happening to him. And just to point to all the sisters right now, she didn't have to get in it with him to help him get out of it. So, and then there was a woman who was not a part of his family, who gave him, was Pharaoh's daughter, gave him a hand up, not a hand out. She lifted him up. If it were not for the women in Moses' life, Moses never would have made it. I'm blessed like Moses. If it were not for the women in my life during the worst time of my life, I never would have made it.
I appreciate that. I appreciate acknowledging that statement that you don't have to go into it with in order. You don't have to get in it.
Yeah.
So you know what, Dr. Fryer, I'm telling you, we are just about out of time. So I want, with the last 2 minutes, I know we have got to get a part two. The last 2 minutes that we have left, how can people follow you, find out more about what you're doing, connect with you? Where are you?
Well, I am on Instagram at Dr. Fryer. I am on Instagram. You can find me there. I am on Facebook, Irving Fryar on Facebook. But where I really want people to go is to the Fryer Place. If you go to YouTube and search the Fryer Place, that's I think you can see it. Can you see it up above me?
F-R-Y-A-R.
Yeah, F-R-Y-A-R. Yeah, not E-R. E-R is a chicken. A-R. All right.
A-R.
A-R. Search the Fryer Place and subscribe. We're on every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time, and then we post after that, so you can see it afterwards. I'm trying to be well-rounded. I've had several football players on, yes, but we've had a doctor on, Dr. Tanya Tinsley. She's written a book called Four Quarters, and she uses psychology and spirituality and mixes them together to help people live better lives. I've had Mr. Mario Henry on one of the shows. He is with the U.S. Housing Exchange. He's out of Houston, and MWR, Making Wealth Reality Financial. So he came on and talked about finances and talked about credit. I've had Reggie Dabbs, the #1 youth speaker in the world, came on. He was awesome. And I've had several football players, the Marx brothers, Mark Duper and Mark Clayton. This week, I'm actually having Andre Reed on, Hall of Fame wide receiver. And next week, I'm having Randall Cunningham on.
Wonderful.
So yeah, we
So
we have a good time. And go to the fireplace.
Go to the fireplace.
Yes.
And on that, we hope that you have enjoyed this flip side story. Check us out next week, same time, same place. Thank you, Dr. Fryar.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Pleased to meet you. And I had a good time. And yeah, let's do this again.
Absolutely.
All right.
Awesome. So we are clear from the radio station.
We
And
didn't get
we
nothing
only
done.
I three questions. Three questions. I had so much I wanted to ask, but I do want, because I'm hoping that some of the young people who we have relationships with can hear the answer to this question on Facebook. So those who are still here in Facebook, what would you tell young people today who are aspiring to be famous? What would you tell them? What is the greatest life lesson? Because we have a lot of young athletes that they have stars in their eyes. What advice would you give them?
Okay, buckle your seatbelt.
Uh-oh. Facebook crew, y'all
Yeah,
still there?
Y'all better sit down. If you're standing up, sit down. I was drafted in 1984. I was the first person taken in that draft. There are a lot of Hall of Fame players in that same draft. I was the first person taken in that draft. I was on top of the world. Michael Jackson, I met Michael Jackson. Patti LaBelle sang to me. There's all kind, just absolutely, you can't get any better than that. It just doesn't get any better than that. But I was one of the most miserable people in the world. I had money. I had people all around me. I had fame. I had popularity. I had all of the things that the world says you need to be successful. I had all of that. But I was so miserable, young people, that I tried to commit suicide on several occasions. That's why I said earlier, God takes care of babies and fools. I did the pill thing. I did the run the car into a tree thing. I did the put the gun up to my head and pull the trigger and it jam thing. I had a revolver, Doc, and put it up to my head and pulled the trigger, and it didn't go off, and I fainted. And when I woke up, I was so jacked up, I was mad that I was still alive. That's how jacked up I was. That's how messed up I was. It wasn't until I gave my life to the Lord. And I know this sounds cliche-ish, but that's the key. You got to have that spiritual balance in your life so that you're not tossed and thrown back and forth with whatever life throws your way. You have to have that connection to God through his son, Jesus Christ. You have to have God in your life, and you have to understand who God is, because you must first believe he is, and he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So you have to have an understanding of who he is so that you can depend on him the way he wants you to depend on him, not the way we think we ought to depend on him, because when we do it our way, we're not really depending on him. We're really depending on ourselves and our own abilities and our own intellect. No, you have to have, and you can argue with me all you want to. You're going to lose this argument, because it all begins with God. It does. And listen, you can, here's what I say. I would rather live my life like there is a God and then die and find out there's not, than to live my life like there's not a God and then die and find out that there is. You make the choice. You figure that one out. So that's the answer. Emmanuel, God with us. That's the answer. Jesus Christ. That's the answer to any problems, any questions, any issues that we might have. Faith in God, because your faith in God will get you through anything. I'm not saying that because I read it in a book. I'm not saying that because somebody told me. I'm not saying that because I heard it from somewhere. I'm saying that because I know it to be true, because I have lived it. I've been on both sides. I had everything, all the material stuff. Yeah, I had all the material stuff that you could ever ask for. And I was the most miserable person in the world. And all of us know about people who have boats and cars and houses, and they put a bullet through their head because they don't have.
Watched it.
Yes.
There was a season in time where there were multiple stars back to back that committed suicide.
Yep.
And it was like a shaking moment when you think about that they had what the world would say it is everything,
Right.
but they
Yes.
didn't have the thing that provided peace and grounding and a knowing and a value that was all internal.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
a relationship with God through his son, Jesus Christ. That's the answer.
Yeah.
That was the answer for me. That's the answer for the world.
Awesome. So, I had my question that I wanted to ask that you didn't let me get to on the radio show. So what's your favorite thing about life right now? What's your favorite thing? What are you loving right now?
Well, I'm loving the freedom that God has shown me. For some of us, you don't know you're in bondage until you're set free. You kind of think things, this is the way things are supposed to be. It's almost like when I got glasses. I'm riding in the car with my daughter, and I must have been squinting or something. And she goes, "Can you see?" I said, "Yeah, I can see the signs right there. I see the signs." She goes, "You can't see." I said, "I can see."
can't see.
Then she gave me her glasses, and I put them on, and then I could see. But I didn't know I couldn't see until I could see. And it's like we don't know. We think things are supposed to be a certain way because they've always been that way, but we're really in bondage. And until we're set free, we never realized we were in bondage. And when I went to prison, I was set free. I was set free from a bad relationship, a bad marriage. And it's not bad because we weren't physically beating each other up, but I was in bondage. I was in bondage. I was set free from the attitudes of people. I was set free from bad relationships and friendship with regards to friendships, one-sided, non-reciprocal. Me thinking that it's a reciprocal relationship, but then I found out that it wasn't when some stuff went down. So I was set free from all of that, and now I'm married to a woman who allows me to be me. She's okay with me being me. Matter of fact, she told me, because I guess she could see it too. I told you earlier that I was really starting to shrink myself. I was really starting to put my head in the sand and really just kind of shrink away from everything and everybody, because I was losing myself to what I thought people thought about me. And I only looked at the negative. I only heard the negative. I didn't hear anything positive. All I heard was negative. And I started to be consumed by that. I almost allowed myself to be consumed by that. But then about a year and a half or so ago, I started to come out of it. And as this podcast and I found out what Keith was doing and I started getting involved, that was a part of me coming out too and really just being myself. And my wife she's back there cheering me on. Yeah, you need to get your behind back out there and be who you are. So I just love. I'm loving the freedom of life now, where I don't feel in bondage. I'm free from any anxiety. I'm free to make choices and decisions without the environment changing or the atmosphere changing. So yes, and it took God. It took God allowing me to go to prison for that to happen.
Wow. I got free in prison.
In prison.
Esther said, "Amen."
I
Faith
had to
in
go.
God.
I had to go to prison to meet good people too. That sounds like an oxymoron.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because again, they all for whatever reason, and there's people in prison who aren't guilty. They're innocent. But we've all been found guilty.
We've all been found guilty. And how will we treat one another?
Right. And we're all guilty. We all there's a unification of all humanity. We're all unified because we're all under the umbrella of guilt, of sin. Whether we want to try to create racism and separatism and all. No, we're all unified. Why? Because we're all under the umbrella of sin. We're all under the law. And we're all guilty. And we need to get that. We need to get that and stop, separating this one's better than that one because they look like this or because they have that or because they wear this or because they drive that. No, we're all the same.
We're all guilty.
Human race, and we're all guilty. And we all need the redeeming power of the blood of Jesus Christ in our lives to reconcile us back to God.
All right, y'all know you're getting ready to start preaching. So, well, I have to say thank you again. I so appreciate you coming on to the flip side, being so transparent and so honest, as well as inspiring. I'm excited to be able to point people to the
Yes,
Fryar's
please do.
Place. Absolutely. And so make sure you check it out on YouTube. And thanks again.
All right. Thanks.
Greatly appreciate it. Have a great
Appreciate
evening.
You too. Take care. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.